Niners faithful, today we are celebrating a franchise legend, breaking down some roster shuffling that tells you exactly how the 49ers think about building depth, and diving deep into the roster ranking series to examine the players in that crucial tier between star and starter, the contributors, the role players, the guys who do not generate national headlines but who win and lose championships in the moments that matter most. This is the most important part of any roster evaluation because it is where front offices either separate themselves from the competition or expose themselves to the injuries and attrition that derail seasons. And what the 49ers have built in this tier is genuinely impressive. Let us get into all of it. Start with the news that should generate nothing but warmth and appreciation from every single person who has ever cared about this franchise. Linebacker Keena Turner is being inducted into the 49ers Hall of Fame this season in Week 6, and there is not a more deserving recipient of that honor in the entire history of this organization. Turner played his entire career with the 49ers, won 4 Super Bowl championships in the 1980s as part of one of the most dominant dynasties in professional sports history, transitioned directly into coaching under Bill Walsh at Stanford, and has been a member of the 49ers front office in various capacities since 2001. That is 25 years of organizational service on top of an elite playing career. The man played in a Super Bowl with chickenpox. That is a detail that somehow perfectly encapsulates what Keena Turner represents: toughness, commitment, and an absolute refusal to let anything get between him and his responsibility to the team. The 49ers Hall of Fame is exactly the right recognition for exactly the right player at exactly the right time, and the Week 6 induction ceremony is going to be a special moment at Levi's Stadium. The sincere McCormick roster situation is exactly what every veteran NFL observer recognizes as the completely normal, completely cyclical process of off-season roster building in the depth spots. McCormick was cut to sign Jordan Mims and Jammical Hasty a couple of weeks ago. Now Mims and Hasty are gone, and McCormick is back. What actually happened here is that the 49ers ran an extended audition for multiple running backs in the 70 to 90 range of their roster, evaluated what they saw, and concluded that McCormick gives them more of what they need at that depth spot than the alternatives did. That is roster building done correctly, not roster building done chaotically. The depth chart behind Christian McCaffrey, Jordan James, and Kalon Black is going to keep churning through training camp as players earn spots and others fall away, and none of the movement in those depth positions should generate significant concern. The 3 backs who matter are clear. Everything below them is competition. Now let us get into the roster ranking series, because this is where the analysis gets genuinely interesting and where the 49ers roster depth reveals itself as something more substantial than the national conversation typically acknowledges. Jake Tonges at 26 is a perfect entry point for this tier because he represents exactly the kind of player that winning organizations develop. An athletic receiving tight end who was a relative unknown before George Kittle's injury created an opportunity, who seized that opportunity by producing his first career reception in Week 1 and building on it throughout. But his receiving ability is real and his upside trajectory is clearly pointing upward. Renardo Green at 25 is the name that generates the most passionate responses from 49ers fans because the talent is so obvious and the inconsistency is so maddening. The physical tools are unambiguously starting caliber, his athleticism, his length, and his ability to make plays in man coverage have all shown up at various points. The processing and zone recognition are the developmental gaps that have prevented him from becoming the lockdown corner his physical profile suggests he should be. Year 3 is critical for corners in this league because it is typically when the mental game catches up to the physical ability, when the defensive concepts become instinctive rather than calculated, and when the consistent performance that separates contributors from stars either emerges or does not. Having a better pass rush in front of him this season, with Bosa hopefully healthy, with new additions on the edge, with a defensive front that generates more consistent pressure, will make every coverage behind it look better, and Green should benefit from that structural improvement. Keion White at 24 might be the most important player ranking in this entire segment because the framing of him as the most underrated player on the entire team is exactly correct, and the reasoning behind it is sound. White is a power rusher who creates real problems for both interior and exterior offensive linemen, who is genuinely solid against the run, and who now gets to operate in a rotation alongside Nick Bosa and the rest of a defensive front that should be generating significantly more pressure than last year's unit did. When you are coming off the bench behind legitimate starters and your job is to maintain pressure without giving the offense a chance to rest, the specific skill set White brings, disruptive, physical, relentless, is extraordinarily valuable. He is going to eat in those backup snaps, and the cumulative effect of his contributions over the course of a 17-game season and a playoff run is going to be larger than his ranking suggests. Deshaun Stribling at 23 is the name that generates the most genuine excitement for what this offense could become. Because a 6'2" receiver who runs in the 4.4s, has reliable hands, and can block, that combination of physical attributes meets the threshold for a legitimate NFL starting receiver. The route running refinement will come with experience and repetition in Shanahan's system, and the coaching staff that has already been raving about his spring performance is exactly the kind of environment where a player with Stribling's physical gifts can develop quickly. His ceiling is genuinely significant, and if the injury situation at receiver creates opportunity early in the season, he has the tools to seize it. Christian Kirk at 22 above Stribling is the right call, even if it feels counterintuitive, because the value Kirk brings is qualitatively different from the developmental upside Stribling represents. A veteran who has played every receiver position in multiple offenses over a decade in the league, who can mentor younger players by example and by instruction, who gives the coaching staff flexibility in both personnel groupings and play design. That experience has real value that does not show up in a stats line, but absolutely shows up in winning football games. The Stribling ranking will almost certainly pass Kirk as the season progresses. Right now, the veteran slot is justified. Alfred Collins at 21, coming off a rookie season with real flashes and real consistency issues, is exactly the kind of developmental player that separates good programs from great ones. The physical profile is starting caliber interior defensive lineman. The execution gaps are coachable. If year 2 brings the consistency improvement that the coaching staff and the scouting department believe is coming, Collins is going to be a long-term starter at a premium defensive position. The Rams game on the road when San Francisco pulled off that upset as significant underdogs was specifically mentioned as a moment where Collins showed what he is capable of. And building on those flashes into sustained production is the entire year 2 mission. DJ Jones at 20, coming off a PCL injury that clearly diminished him throughout last season, is the kind of reclamation that veteran teams with strong medical and training staffs pull off quietly and then leverage into playoff run production. A healthy Jones is a meaningful upgrade to this offensive line's run blocking and pass protection. And the second half improvement he showed when the injury was less acute is the evidence that the talent has not declined, it was simply unavailable. Expect him to be one of the quiet positive stories of the 2026 season. Jake Brendel at 19, having the best year of his career at center, while also having some of his worst games in the most important moments, is the honest assessment that every rational 49ers fan has arrived at. You take the best year, you note the concerning timing of the worst games, and you hope that the overall positive trajectory continues while the specific situational execution improves. Brendel at his best is a legitimate starting center in the NFL. Getting that version more consistently, especially in January, is the development goal. Kyle Juszczyk at 18 deserves the extended defense that his evaluation received because the fullback dismissal that has become of structure, that is scheme value that goes far beyond blocking statistics. The best receiving fullback in NFL history playing at a still high level is an asset that most teams cannot replicate. And the fans calling for his release are advocating for a limitation of the offense rather than an improvement of it. C.J. West at 17 capping this segment is the name to watch as a potential breakout candidate. Because a nose tackle who is getting physically bigger, who already showed the ability to occupy double teams in his rookie season, and who flashed genuine pocket-pushing pass rush capability in the Colts game, is exactly the kind of interior anchor that makes everything around him better. If West takes the step forward that his physical development and his rookie flashes suggest he is capable of, the 49ers defensive line in 2026 could be dramatically more effective than last year's unit with the same personnel decisions plus Bosa's return from injury. The tier from 26 to 17 tells you what the 49ers have built below their star level. And what they have built is genuinely good. Contributors, role players, developmental pieces with real upside, and veterans with specific value, this is the infrastructure of a championship contending roster, and it is more impressive than the national conversation typically acknowledges. Smash that like button, drop your prediction for the top 10 in the comments. Give a shout out to Keena Turner and his well-deserved Hall of Fame induction, and if you are not already subscribed, hit that button right now. 5 days a week of 49ers content all the way through training camp and into the season. We will see you tomorrow.